quick facts. In 2017, Ben Shapiro and Cenk of the Young Turks had a debate at Politicon, which is like a conference for political... It doesn't matter. Most of the debate was spent talking about healthcare. They also went into taxes in the latter half of the debate. But in this video, I just want to focus on the healthcare part because God knows if I have to correct everything in this entire fucking debate, I'm going to kill myself. But let's start out by making 2 points very clear before we even show anything of the debate, okay? Point number one, where does the American healthcare system actually rank in the world? Okay, let's check. Here's the World Health Organization rating. They rate America as 37th in the world. Now, pretty much every other country on top of, above America here, are some form of universal healthcare system. They all have some form or another of universal healthcare system. Here's the actual study. You can see the same thing here. This is the data. This also measures inequality. You can see, we scroll up here, quality, equity, efficiency. These are all the things that these are all the parameters that they take into their account of how good a healthcare system is. When all of this data is taken into account, you can read through this entire paper yourself. I'll put it in the description. You can find multiple other papers, I'm sure. This is very, very, very researched thing. Okay, we have all the data. The fact of the matter is, America is much lower on the totem pole of healthcare systems compared to other Western countries who all have some form of universal healthcare. This is the truth. These are the data. I don't really particularly care if you like that or not. These are just the facts, okay? Your facts don't care about your feelings, bruh. That's point number one. Point number two is, what is a right? What do you think a right is, right? Right, you don't find rights just as some sort of universal truth, right? You can't look at the stars and figure out what a right is. You can't look at physics and figure out what a right is. You won't find it in the DNA code. There's no DNA code of human being that says these are the rights of humankind. So what is a right? A right is effectively just something that we agree on that, oh, it would be good, we think, if we give this as a right to people. And why would we do that? Well, most of the time we give out rights or we establish something as a right if it is necessary in order for that person to function in modern society, right? So we would say that oxygen is a right because if we rob people of oxygen, they won't be able to survive. And so it is beneficial, and we agree that it is probably a good thing that we should establish that no one is allowed to limit people's oxygen unnecessarily, right? We have plenty of oxygen. The oxygen should be for everyone. You're not allowed to fucking charge people for the oxygen they breathe. That is a right, right? That's what we establish in a society, and there's no rules that say we can't make this a right or we can't make that a right. As long as we have enough of the resource that we're talking about to go around, and we decide that it would be a good thing that we do distribute it around so that we can all fucking survive, then that's a right, right? We decide that. There's no this can't be a right or this can't be a right. There's no such thing. We are the people, and we decide whether or not to make something a right as long as we can afford to do so. So the question should never be, is something inherently a right or not? The question should be A, would it be good to make it a right? And B, can we afford to make it a right? Those are the interesting questions. Whatever else is just bullshit. So those are the two things that I wanted to establish first. Number one, America ranks 37th in the world. Number two, rights are not, we can make anything a right. There's no, you'll see what I mean when we actually get into the debate. Okay, let's get into this. This is the first point that Ben makes right out of the gate.
The truth about healthcare is this. There are three qualities of healthcare that you can have. You can have affordability, you can have universality, or you can have quality. And you can have two of those three things, but not all three.
That makes no sense. What does that even mean? Does anyone on Ben's side think what he just said makes any sense? Because that's so clearly just a straw man that he set up. He just made that. According to who? Why? Who? According to who do you only have two of those three things? It doesn't even make sense to divide healthcare into those three things in the beginning. Two of those things are the same thing. Universality and affordability are the same thing. If it's not affordable, then it's not universal, right? Then all people can't have it. What do you mean? If it is affordable, then it is universal. Like, universality and affordability aren't separate things. So you only really have two things there. You have universality or you have quality. And you can only have two of those things, apparently, is what he's saying. Well, great, you can have both, apparently, does that mean. And if we actually look at the list, that's clearly not even true the way that you're setting this up, because it's not a binary. Like, it's not like you either have quality or you don't have quality. It's a matter of how much quality do you have, what is the quality of the quality, so to speak, right? That's how you measure these things. So when you look at these countries, if you look at France, out of those three things, in heavy quotes, out of those three things, what does France lack compared to America? Do they have less quality? No, apparently not. Do they have less universality? Obviously not. Like, where does Ben get this idea that you can only pick two of those three things? He just made like some imaginary system in his head and then just ascribed it to reality as if it's the truth, and idiots fall for it. Idiots fall for it because they think, oh, that sounds reasonable, but they don't actually check if that's actually what reality works that way. They don't check it. They just take Ben's word for it because they like to suck his dick.
Stop acting as though insurance companies' jobs is actually just to reimburse people for their bad health.
Who is saying that it's insurance company's job to do that? We're saying that it's the job of the healthcare system to do that. The healthcare system, we will judge the quality of the healthcare system based on its ability to afford people health. That is a reasonable way to approach judging a healthcare system, because that is the goal of the healthcare system, right? I don't know why you're talking about, is that the job of insurance companies? If insurance companies want to involve themselves in the healthcare system, then yes, they have to conform to the goals of the healthcare system, or they have to get the fuck out. That's the demand of the people, and we as the people have every right and every ability to do so, right? That's why all of these countries who do exactly that do so very successfully. I don't know how conservatives can keep arguing with results. The results are here. The data is right here. How can you argue with the data? I don't understand this. Like, you made up some idea in your head and you don't like the data. How am I supposed to reason with this shit?
If you join up with an insurance company and your health sucks to begin with, you're going to pay more because it's an insurance company, not a charity.
But that's what you say, and we're saying, well, it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what all of these countries also said, and clearly it works. Like, there's no reason. Number one, would it be good to ensure that people with bad health can still get affordable healthcare? Yeah, obviously that would be a good thing. Can we afford to do it? Yes, we can. Okay. Do the people want to do it?
Medicare polls at 77% and actually accomplishes the three things that Ben talked about. It's universal coverage, it is affordable, and actually gives you good insurance. That's why it polls at 77%. And Medicare for All now polling at 60%. Federally funded health insurance for everybody polling at 61%. So I tell to my Democratic friends, you might want to try something that's popular for a change.
So if the people want it, it is doable and it is positive. The only reason, like the only thing you're introducing here is you're saying that you personally don't like it. Great, Ben, but that makes no difference. Like, no one cares.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have some form of backup for people who have pre-existing conditions. I would hope that the social fabric would help fill that in. This is why I'm a big believer in charity and churches and synagogues filling that gap.
If you're a Ben Shapiro fan and you just heard him say that, you understand how stupid that was, right? I don't have to I don't have to explain this to you, right? I mean, unless you're like 12 years old, in which case, I guess that's understandable. But if you're a grown-ass human being and you just heard him say that, and you don't realize how impossibly dumb that response was, I don't know how to help you. You are actually backwards. What kind of a 5 IQ crayon are you? Holy shit. Okay, so he's arguing that we shouldn't set up a society that takes care of people to the extent that we are able to do so, because he doesn't like it. And his response is, Well, we could fix it instead with charities. Number one, if charities could fix it, why haven't they already fixed it? What is stopping charities from fixing it right now? There's this binary thinking that, oh, if we have healthcare system, then we can't have charities. No, we have both at the same time. But clearly charities aren't making up for the lapse in your healthcare system. They just aren't. Like, this is the data. These are the results. I want to see results, conservatives. Okay? I want to see results. That's what I want. If you can't show me results, then these lofty theories and ideas that you have about charities and fuck, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's meaningless. It's dribble. It's a waste of my time. It's just a total waste. If your response to, oh, our healthcare system is failing millions of people every year, if your response to that is, well, if we just eliminate the healthcare system, then charities could take over. Now you might say that's not what he's saying. I think that's pretty much the implication of what he's saying, but fair enough. Even a conservative, more fair interpretation of what he was saying would be what? What is the most fair interpretation of what he's saying? That, oh, if we just keep the healthcare system as it is, or remove Obamacare, or I don't know what he wants, but whatever we do, you think that the loopholes will be plugged by charities? Okay, then why aren't the loopholes already being plugged by charities if charities really have this ability to do so? What is stopping them from doing so right now? Are they just looking at the system and saying, well, we're not going to plug in all the loopholes? Because why? Now, you might say, well, they are plugging in, they are helping. You know, charities do exist, right? But clearly they don't exist in the capacity that they're able to actually account for the flaws in the system. They are not actually taking care of all the people who are in need of care, clearly. So whatever they are contributing, it's clearly not even nearly enough to make up for just eliminating the healthcare system, or not accepting a universal healthcare system, or not taking care of people. This is obviously true. You don't have to be an expert in anything to realize this is true. It's just a matter of logic. Charities exist, problems exist. Clearly, charities don't account for those problems. Otherwise, the problems wouldn't exist. Right?
But what we can't do is suggest, as the Bernie Sanders left does, that healthcare is an inalienable right, and therefore you can put a gun to my wife's head, she's a doctor, and you can force her to provide care at any cost you want to pay.
No, that's a straw man. No one has said that we're going to do that. First of all, no one is putting a gun to anyone's head, and no one is going to say, oh, you have to do it at this cost. Now, we might have some price controls and say you are not allowed to fucking overprice it, and that's fine, but we do that in all kinds of industries. Are you saying that it's not fair for us as the people to make demands on how our companies prices? You're saying that if a person tries to scam you and we try to say, look, you're not allowed to price it like 3,000,000% higher than what is reasonable when it's something that I need to survive. If you're going to do that, then we're not going to allow you to operate in our society because we do not want that bullshit in our society. We as the people have every right to say that. If you're going to frame that as, oh, so you want to put a gun to my wife's head and force her to do, like, what the fuck are you talking about, Ben? And then it's back to this, well, you can't just make it an inalienable right. Says who, Ben? Says who? As I discussed first, point number 2, you can make anything an inalienable right if we agree that it should be a right and we can afford to do so. And clearly both of those things are true, so why not? Why not? The only thing stopping us is people like Ben insisting that it's not possible. For what reason? No reason. They've just decided that it's not possible. But they can't, like, if you challenge them on any of this, they can't answer you. They don't have any fucking answers. It's all just, well, charities could do it. Great, Ben. Let me know when you've actually thought of a solution, okay?
The problem with Medicare for all is that when people say that it's affordable, this isn't affordable to the person who has the Medicare. It is not affordable to the country.
What does that even mean? I don't even know. I don't know what that means. It's affordable to the person, but not to the country. The country and the people are the same. The people make up the country. What do you mean specifically? It's not affordable for all people, but it is affordable to the person who has the... What are you talking about? Again, let me refer back to the fucking data. Here's the data. Clearly it's affordable. All of these countries are able to do it. They all have much smaller economies than America. Much smaller economies than America, okay? Some of them also have, clearly, much smaller populations than America, but if you're going to take a relationship between the economy and the population, I'm pretty sure you can come out that America should be more than capable of doing whatever these countries are doing, okay? The idea that America is incapable of doing it because it's incapable of doing it is ridiculous. It's just dumb.
In fact, it is so unaffordable to the country that the state of California was a nut job leftist state, just refused to even pass Medicare for all because it would have immediately doubled the debt.
So it's impossible to do because California didn't do it, and you think it would double the debt. And therefore, this is a circular argument. Let me go back to the data yet again. Here's all of these countries are bigger than California, my dude. They all did it. The fact that California refused to do it means nothing. It's completely irrelevant. It's not an argument. It's horseshit.
As far as the idea that medical care is a right, but it's not actually a good or a service, this is a way to make things less plentiful. If you declare things right, but you don't actually incentivize the creation of those things, you don't get more of them. So the South African Constitution has right in there that healthcare is a right, that housing is a right. The fact is that you don't have good housing or health care in South Africa because just declaring things rights does not make them appear. What makes more things appear is a market-based system that creates more doctors, that creates more medical care, that creates more incentive for people to join up.
That's a straw man. No one has suggested that making things right will make more of that resource appear. No one has suggested that. Okay, no one is saying that making things right will increase the amount of resources we have. That is no one's argument. What you're talking about has nothing to do with anything, Ben. What we're saying is that making things right will make people who can't afford it. It will make people who are struggling not struggle. It will make people who are dying not die, potentially, if it's curable. We are saying that in a society where we have more resources than ever possible, where we have so much resources that we are throwing half of it into the fucking ocean because we have too much of it. In a society like that, people should not be dying of curable illnesses. If it's curable, then we should be curing it. That's what we're saying. Okay? We are talking about human lives, where no one is suggesting that this is a way of making more resources appear. We're saying that this is a better way of redistributing the resources that we do have. That's what we're saying. Like, what the fuck? I don't... What? Are you stupid?
So my wife's a doctor. That means she has to go through 1,000 years of medical training. We have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make her a doctor. The idea that you're going to have the government come in and then dictate the sort of care that she should provide to each particular patient, and then dictate how much she should be paid for that care, is going to lead to a decrease in the number of people who are going into the medical industry, which decreases the level of care overall.
No one is... Having universal healthcare does not mean that you're going to dictate what kind of care you can give to your patients. How does that make sense? It's the same hospitals, the same doctors. The only thing that changes is that their salaries, instead of being paid privately, will be paid through taxes. It's the same. It's probably going to be the same salaries. The only thing that's going to change is the overhead costs. Like, why would their salaries change, even? Unless it's like the salaries of like the board members or some shit. I don't know. Why would the salaries of the normal doctors change? And even if they would, what would definitely not change is the treatment. Do you think that if I came into the doctors with a common cough and the doctor was like, well, typically I would cure this in X, Y, and Z way, but the government has said that I need to cure it with these pills. That's not how... That has nothing to do with this. Like, the fact that we're funding it through taxes doesn't change the way that we're treating patients. The patients would be treated with the same methods. The same illnesses still have the same treatment. The treatments don't change, Ben. It's such an illogical argument. Like, it's such a giant straw man. Like, everything this guy says is just straw man after straw man after straw man, like, out of nowhere. He just manifests weird, like, hypotheses and theories in his head out of nothing. He has no idea how this works, and he just imagined in his head how this must work in, like, if Stalin did it. Like, it makes no sense.
It is better to treat things as goods than as rights, because declaring something a right just means that you have the right to steal it from me. But declaring something a good means that you get a market process that leads to lower prices and better care over time.
Why would that mean that? How would you declare something a good? If it's a good, it's a good. It's not a good because I declared it a good. What does that mean? Like, this is another one of those just I make up shit for.
Ben, I don't want to steal health insurance from you. I want you to be healthy. That's why I want Medicare for all. Oh my God, it turns out the healthy subsidize the sick. Yeah, that's insurance. That's how it works. It's like the people with that are not getting into accidents are subsidizing the accidents. Yes, that's car insurance. That's how insurance works. And yes, taxes work in that we all decide we're going to do X, but we're not going to do Y. And I think it is fair for society to say that yes, we are going to do healthcare for everybody. Everybody. We're not going to leave 20 million people uninsured. We're not going to leave 30 million people uninsured. That's not what we do in a civilized society.
It's exactly to the point. Thank you, Cenk.
You know, the idea that it can't be done is preposterous, since every other Western developed country does some version of single payer. It obviously can be done, and it is done at lower rates and better coverage.
So let me...
The idea that everybody who's paying into Medicaid paid for it and now they get out what they paid in is obviously not true. It is a redistributive program, and to pretend otherwise is just silly. The people who are paying the payroll taxes are not the people who are taking out through Medicaid. Obviously.
Can I just address that super quick? So if we're talking about Medicare, right? Not Medicaid.
Right.
So in Medicare, so you're both correct and incorrect. So it's not like I put in $20 and I get $20 back. That part is true.
Right.
But we all pay into Medicare together, and then we all get it when we are
can
sick.
I ask you a
insurance.
question? I have two questions, really serious questions. One, what is your ideal tax rate? Because it's going to cost a lot of money for a lot of this stuff. And two, what is your ideal level of medical care?
Do you notice how he just completely changed subject there? Like they were talking about how distribution works in healthcare. And then Cenk made the counterpoint to Ben, because Ben made a really dumb idea. Ben basically just said that it's not the same people that pay for it that take it out. That's obviously not true. If you pay for it, then you take it out when you need it. It's not like, oh, if you pay for it, then you don't get to ever use healthcare. That doesn't make any sense. The people who use healthcare most of the time also pay taxes. It's a very small minority of people who use healthcare who don't pay taxes. And if they do, it's because they don't have any money. They're like in a really shitty situation, and those people should probably still be able to be saved through medical intervention, right? If they need it. Otherwise, how can we expect those people to ever get a job and get the help that they need to get financially stable if they're in some shitty health situation and they can't afford to help themselves, and we won't help them? Like, how does a society like that work? Clearly, I mean, these societies that do this have really good results in performance and, you know, quality and business, right? Their ability to have a more fluid worker class that can move up and down from worker brackets, right? What is that called? Like social fluidity or something like that? When people are able to move between financial classes easily by their own work, right? These countries have really high social fluidity, right? They're more than capable of doing this. And then instead of answering to that, Ben immediately just changes to, well, what would the tax rates be, and what? Well, that's a completely separate point. You basically just gave up on that point, I guess, and moved on to something else.
Healthcare is an expensive business, even under a single-payer system, which is why generally you end up with rationing. So, what is your ideal level of healthcare that is provided to everyone, and what sort of tax rate are you proposing to subsidize that?
Yeah.
So he's basically saying it's expensive, right? Do you want to replay this and see again? Let's replay this and notice when he just changes topic here.
The idea that everybody who's paying into Medicaid paid for it and now they get out what they paid in is obviously not true. It is a redistributive program, and to pretend otherwise is just silly.
That's
people
topic
who are
number
paying
one.
Payroll taxes are not the people who are taking out through Medicaid. Obviously.
Can I just address that?
Cenk responds.
So if we're talking about Medicare, right? Not Medicaid.
Right.
So in Medicare, so you're both correct and incorrect. So it's not like I put in $20 and I get $20 back. That part is true.
Right.
But we all pay into Medicare together, and then we all get it when we are
Can
sick.
I ask you a
insurance.
question? I have two questions, really serious questions. One,
Instant change of
what is your ideal
topic.
tax rate? Because it's going to cost a lot of money for a lot of this stuff. And two, what is your ideal level of medical care? Healthcare is an expensive business, even under a single-payer system, which is why generally you end up with rationing. So, what is your ideal level of healthcare that is provided to everyone, and what sort of tax rate are you proposing to subsidize that?
Yeah.
That was so clearly just him changing topic entirely when he realized he couldn't actually continue that back and forth about what it actually means when you insure people through healthcare. It's so obvious. I don't know.
Said to me, well, you're going to have $800 in taxes that are new. I said, wow, that hurts. But you're going to save $1,000 in premiums. Deal. That is a deal I will take every time because I can do math.
That's true. I mean, it's when people think about taxes, they generally think of taxes as like what you pay out of your income, but in as like the official taxes. But another thing that you should be thinking of taxes, and actually the government actually ruled that this should be considered taxes as well, is the necessary costs that you have to pay throughout the year for stuff. So for instance, whatever you have to pay for your insurance on your healthcare should also be considered a type of tax. So when you say, well, you increase the taxes, not really. You're just taking the private taxes that you had to pay on your insurance, and you're moving that out of your insurance and into the actual official tax. And so it's not really increasing anything. It's just moving the cost from one document to another document, but it's the same money either way. As a matter of fact, it's in a lot of countries, as a matter of fact, in most countries in the West that have universal healthcare, their average healthcare costs is like half that of them in America, which is partly because of their ability to do price controls. But one of the reasons also is that obviously if you have more people grouping together to buy a service together, they have more power to get a better deal and to get cheaper prices than if all of you have to pay separately. This is an obvious point. If you are one person buying pizzas from a place, you have less power to bargain with that place to get cheaper pizzas, right? If you have 2 million people making a deal with a place saying, look, if you provide 2 million pizzas for every one of us, look, if you give us a really good deal on these 2 million pizzas, then we will put all of our 2 million people into your business, right? You have a much better position to make a good deal if you buy a service together than if you do so separately. And therefore, in a lot of situations when you do buy things together, it actually ends up being cheaper. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to work in America. That is how it has worked in a lot of other. You are going to be paying more because why? Because you're paying for other people's shit. You're paying either way. If you're paying out of pocket or you're paying through your taxes, it's irrelevant. It's just whatever form you put the number on. What does it matter? Yeah, now I'm about to show you the one thing that Ben is like famous for. And this is a gish gallop. If you don't know what a gish gallop is, in a discussion, a gish gallop is when your opponent suddenly launches into 15 different points and then just puts those on you like a shotgun shell, right? He just goes through 15 different points really quickly. And the idea there is that you can start rebutting one of the points and then you get stuck going back and forth on that point, but then at the end of the discussion you've not had the chance to rebut the 15 other points. In a better discussion you're supposed to only give like one point and go back and forth on that point and really flesh out the points themselves. You're not supposed to do like 15 different points in quick succession. Let's call it gish gallop. It's a bad way of doing a discussion, but Ben Shapiro does this really frequently, and I want you to see him doing exactly that right now, and then we're going to go through each of his points and why it's fucking stupid.
So all this sounds great, except for the fact that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security eat up 66% of the federal budget every single year. The idea that all of these socialized medicine countries have it so much better than we do, particularly in terms of cancer care, is a joke. We are still #1 in terms of 5-year cancer survival rate here in the United States.
Okay, so that's like 3 different points that he just went shotgun on. let's go one by one here.
So all this sounds great, except for the fact that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security eat up 66% of the federal budget every single year.
Irrelevant. Whatever. The fact that healthcare is expensive, no one is rebutting this. But you're paying healthcare either way, whether or not you're doing it through taxes or privately, you're still paying it. The fact that it's expensive, what is your point? Like, what does that mean? Like, okay, it's expensive. I grant you. What does that mean?
The idea that all of these socialized medicine countries have it so much better than we do, particularly in terms of cancer care, is a joke.
They do have it so much better than you do. Just look at the stats. Now, you can point out cancer care, but that's you cherry picking. You're just cherry picking one particular area where you're good and then using that to dismiss the entire overwhelming amount of data about the entire area as a whole. That's a really disingenuous debate tactic.
We are still #1 in terms of 5-year cancer survival rate here in the United States.
But Ben, honestly, you're cherry picking there one particular area that we're good. Overall, we're number 37. That is not a good result.
Well, you have
so
to break
if we're
down
not
what that
dying
means.
from cancer, we're dying from other things. It's empirical. We are not as healthy.
That's not surprising to me that you are really good in one particular area, but again, that's a cherry picking. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that the entire data of the entire system is false. If I show you, oh, look, your healthcare in France is much better than it is in America, and you go, oh, well, on cancer we're still the best ones, I'll go, okay. That's great, but I mean, what does that matter? Like, what is your point? What? Here's another example of Ben doing a really dramatic straw man. That is just like, what the? This is just watch, okay?
We now have some of the highest corporate tax rates altogether in the industrialized world. And if you would prefer for us to destroy half of the world before we become the only country that didn't have its industrial capacity destroyed, which is what happened in the 1940s, leading to us being the only productive country on planet Earth, essentially, for the next 2 decades, I'm not with you there. I'm not really in favor of having a giant world war that destroys all industrial capacity across the West.
And they cheer
so
for
we're the only
that.
people who actually have the capacity to produce anything and just markets that we can provide.
What is stupid straw man?
First of all, it is fair to say that, of course, the 1950s and 60s were different. We just come out of the war. So, but you have to consider all the different factors. So one was that factor, and the other factor that was the one I mentioned. So when Republicans or conservatives say, well, high taxes by definition will lead to slower growth, well, we know because of our experience in the 1950s and 60s that isn't true. Now, you can say there are other factors, but you can't say that the highest marginal tax rate being 70 or even 90% slows down growth, because it didn't. And it wasn't in Japan and Switzerland, it was right here.
This idea that corporations are paying the highest tax rate is both, again, true and untrue. The part that it's true is, hey, there's a rate of 35%. The part that's not true is they don't actually pay that. There is giant loopholes. And they've got $2 trillion sitting offshore, and they won't bring it in. And the reality is that if you look at the taxes from the 1950s, corporations used to pay about 1/3 of our taxes, about 33% of the taxes overall. So they did their fair share, and that is fair. I don't want them paying all of it, but I want them paying a reasonable amount. Now, the share that corporations pay of taxes is down to 10%. You see what they did there? They did wealth redistribution. They took your wealth and redistributed to them.
They lied to this question by saying we can learn stuff from Japan. The standard of care is the entire question when it comes to single-payer health care. That is the entire thing. If people felt like they were going to get the same access to care in a single-payer healthcare system as they did in a system where they can pay their own way, then we would have no controversy here. The fact is that rationing is mandated as soon as you start having the government run the healthcare system and decide what level of care people get. So I don't want anyone deciding what level of care that I can get. I don't want anyone else they don't care about me. They don't know my child's name. They don't know my name. All they know is how much I cost.
What does that? The doctors know your name. They know what you need. The doctors don't change. The only thing that changes is how their pay is paid. Is it on this sheet or another sheet? I mean, still paid. It's still the same amount of money. It's just, is it through taxes or is it at the point of service, out of the pockets of the people? Like, I swear to God, I might actually have an aneurysm listening to this. I mean, I wouldn't mind if Ben Shapiro was some like ass backwards like no name dude, but people actually think this guy is intelligent. People think this guy is like a genius. He's really stupid.
I mean, Ezekiel Emanuel's at least honest about this. Ezekiel Emanuel comes out and says, listen, I want to die at 70, right? I want to die at 80. That's fine with me. I'd rather die at that. Well, that's good for him. But if I don't want to die at 80, or I don't want my father to die at 80, it's none of his damn business.
Why would having a universal healthcare system mean that you have to die at 80? Let's Google this. I live in Norway, guys, okay? I'm pretty sure our average age, or what is it? Living age? Living life expectancy in Norway. 82.51 years, okay? Let's say America. Oh my god. What do you... I don't know what... Canada, 82. Like... Why does living with universal healthcare, why would that mean that you have to live less? Where does that come from, Ben? What are you talking about?
So when you say tax revenue is at its highest point, now you know that that's misleading because everything economically is at its highest point, meaning that we have a lot more people in the country than we did in the 1950s and 60s, so hence we are collecting more overall taxes.
That's just a standard not understanding per capita, I guess. But at this point they get more into the taxes part of the argument, which is sort of the second half where they start, you know, they discuss taxes and what counts as free speech and stuff like that. And I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm not going to get into that. I might do a part 2 or something, I don't fucking know, because there's a lot of dumb shit that Ben Shapiro says there too. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is the healthcare thing, because I think it perfectly illustrates, number one, that Ben Shapiro is really, really bad at making good points. He doesn't make good points, he just makes gish gallops and straw man, and idiots think he's winning because he says it with confidence and he says it quickly, and he says something that they already agree with, right? And the second thing I want to talk about is how incredibly easy it is to get these like tribalistic responses from the audience when you have an entire audience that is already on your side. Like, Ben Shapiro was clearly losing this argument. Like, Cenk made way better points than he did. And Ben kept running away from the points every time he was actually questioned. And still the audience cheers for him, and the people in the comment section thinks that he won. These people are like brain dead. They're so stupid. I don't know how you can be this dumb. I don't know. Like, this is... It really boggles my mind. It's actually scary. Like, shit like this is like the kind of stuff that makes you think, holy shit, democracy is like... this is how shit like Brexit happens. A bunch of idiots just getting together who don't understand anything about anything, convinced that they understand something, and then they vote on really important, life-altering shit for an entire country. Yeah. I mean, I'm still in favor of democracy. I think ultimately it's probably much better than whatever alternative, but I'm just saying that fan bases are really bad sometimes, and I'm not even sure how to approach fixing that. Like, Jesus Christ, it's a mess.